G'day, guys. Welcome to the Thunder from Down Under podcast. I'm your host, Graham Solomon. And as always, smash the like and the heart button to give our guest that's coming in a warm welcome. And always go, if you're not a member, you're not a part of the family, go to the Graham Solomon Thunder from Down Under YouTube channel, hit the subscribe button, become part of the family, get in the Thunderdome when we go live. And when we interview guests like we've got now. So without any further ado, I'll introduce our guest for today. He's originally from Texas. He's just told me off air that he's living in Panama City now, so he's down there, but he's still got businesses in Texas. He's into a lot of stuff. He's an entrepreneur, a young entrepreneur that is into not just real estate, but oil and a whole heap of other stuff. I'll get him to tell his story in a minute. But it's the one and only Nick Perry. Nick, thanks for joining us on the podcast.
Thanks for having me on, man. Thunder Down Under podcast. Love the AC/DC intro. Best band to come out of Australia, man. So appreciate you having me on.
No, Americans love the old AC/DC. So, I mean, how can you not love those guitar riffs? But no, thanks for coming in on such short notice, Nick. I've reached out to you a couple of times. You've been traveling, you've been busy, and bang, you just hit straight in the studio, ready to go. So I appreciate that. Just for the people that may not know you, Nick, you've been all over social media lately. I've seen on Facebook, friends with you. I've seen you all over social media. You're doing a lot of stuff out there. Can you give everyone your backstory about, maybe growing up when you got to a young man and you started getting into work and business and that, and where it all started for you and how you got to sort of where you are now?
Yeah, I mean, it's the typical entrepreneur story, kind of rags to riches, right? I started from a lower middle class family. My parents were divorced. I lived with my dad in a one-bedroom apartment on the couch. He was just scraping by 9 to 5, trying to make ends meet. And, we never really had money for anything extra. A lot of times we're running short on food, things like that. And, as a young man, that left an impression on me that, when I grow up, I never want to be at lack for money. I'd see all my friends, that lived in nicer neighborhoods, getting a car when they were 16 and wearing nice clothes and, doing things like that. And that was not my reality. So it used to piss me off. Like, you know what, when I get older, like I'm going to do whatever I got to do to make sure that, I can buy whatever I want to buy. And I started working at an early age. Basically, as soon as I get a worker's permit here in the United States, I went to work bagging groceries, working at the dollar store. And then I moved into like sales roles. When I was 16, I got a job selling cell phones at a cell phone store.
Yep.
And I kind of had a knack for that. And they promoted me very quickly, but I was 16 and they said, well, we're promoting you to store manager now. They thought I was 18, but I was 16. I was still in school. And they were like, well, it's 40 hours a week, but it comes with a huge promotion. And so I was like, well, I'm going to choose between this job or going back to school. And I never went back to school. I just stopped going to school at that point. And then, I did that for a couple years. And at 18, I became a personal trainer. Fitness saved my life. When I was a teenager, I was running with a pretty rough crowd, getting in trouble, selling drugs, getting in fights, underage drinking, running from the cops. And, I was on house arrest, all the, things that juvenile delinquent does. So I got myself into a heap of trouble. And, fitness is the one thing that really straightened me out. I got in there, started building some confidence, some, just better habits of self-improvement. And it got me, out of that rut that I was in as a teenager, got me in the growth mindset that's carried me through to today. And that was really the start of my adult career, was in personal training. So I was a personal trainer for 5 years. During that 5-year period, all my rich, wealthy clients were pulling up in Rolls Royces and Bentleys and going on vacations to the Maldives. And I'm slaving away as a personal trainer. I'm like, I'm doing something wrong. I need to figure out what these people do for a living. And they all did either real estate or they owned some sort of business.
Yep.
And I was like, well, I'm doing the wrong thing. I need to figure out how I can do that too. So my personal training clients actually became my first mentors. Yeah, they inspired me and poured into me as a young personal trainer. And one of my first real jobs outside of personal training was from one of my clients. He hired me to go open up frozen yogurt stores all over the country. So I'm 23 years old at this point, And I got a job basically on the road 260 days a year, traveling all to the major cities of the United States, opening up the frozen yogurt places. If you remember, like you
Yep.
put the frozen yogurt in and you put the toppings and you weigh it on the scale. I was the guy that if you were going to open a franchise, I'd be the guy that comes out and helps you get the store open, train your employees. And it was great. I got to network with a lot of wealthy people, and that continued to shape and mold me into who I was. But I still realized I needed to do something on my own.
Yeah.
And, at the time I was living in Northern Virginia, right outside of Washington, D.C. It's a miserable place. If you guys have ever been there, it's cold, tons of traffic. Everybody's pissed off all the time. And I wanted out of there desperately. So I had a little bit of money. I had $5,000 saved up, and I said, screw it. I was at the end of my lease in my current living situation. And I just said, you know what? I'm going to call an apartment locator in Austin, Texas, and I'm going to tell him, get me as close to downtown as you can for $1,000. So he
Yep.
did. He put me in $1,000 shithole right outside of downtown Austin. Yeah, I was in a pretty rough part of town, but I drove down there with a bag of clothes, a laptop, and that was pretty much in an air mattress. And
Yeah.
I moved in, and I was like, all right, well, now this is a fresh chapter. What am I going to do? And real estate was always in the back of my head from listening and observing my wealthy clients. And so I got on YouTube and started researching all the ways you can make money in real estate, being a realtor, a developer, a fix and flipper. And I was like, man, I don't have time. I need money now or I'm going to lose this place. And so wholesaling, popped on the feed. You didn't need any money. You didn't need any credit, and you didn't need any experience or credentials. And I was like, well, shit, I qualify.
Yeah, that's
So
right. Yeah.
that's kind of how I got started.
Yeah, that's some story. Like the smart thing that you did, and obviously, you said you got in a bit of trouble in that. A lot of guys when they're younger and they're fit and they're pretty active, they're pretty pumped up guys. They do go off the rails a bit. They get in a bit of trouble because you got all that energy. So, I mean, good move getting into the personal training, getting into the fitness because that is the best way to channel that energy. Or a lot of people do boxing or sport, so that was a smart move. But the smarter move, it seems, Nick, was identifying that you had access to wealthy people right at your fingertips. So, I mean, for you to be able to get that information, and probably a lot of it was subconscious. So by the time you got down to Austin, all these things were starting to come into play, and bang, you went into, you started looking at real estate. So, no, that's cool. And, I just want to touch. I know we're talking real estate. We're heading into real estate. But I just want to touch on that point that not just young men, but young people in general need to have some sort of physical focus and some self esteem, which comes with working out, with playing sport, with being attached to other people. So kudos for that, because that's a good move, and that's some good advice for people. Any young guys or girls watching, that's a first place to start. Now you got into wholesaling. How long did it take you to take off? Like, because you said you're pretty, obviously if you're into fitness and that, you're pretty pumped up. How long did it take you to learn what you needed to learn and to just start taking action from there when you were in Austin?
Well, I mean, I started taking action immediately, and action then was handwriting yellow letters at my kitchen table, using Sharpies and getting completely high off Sharpie marker, writing bandit signs and putting them out, and doing the most cheap form of marketing I could because I didn't have any money.
Yeah.
And so I was going to the county courthouse, scrubbing records, like all the old school crap that they teach you on YouTube. It doesn't work anymore. And I wouldn't advise anybody to do that right now. If you're just getting started, we could talk about maybe that later in the podcast, what I would do if I was going to get started again, because I had a lot of pitfalls in the beginning. It took me 11 months of real effort before I even got my first deal. So this wasn't just like half-assed, like part-time hobbyist wholesale. I mean, I was like, I got to get a deal or I'm going to be starving and, get evicted from this apartment. And I still struck out.
That's amazing. The amount of guys I know in the industry that are at the top of the, top, third of the industry or whatever now, a lot of them took 12 months to get a first deal. So that's a common theme. So there must be once you break through that ceiling, get the first deal and get that, understand that you can do it. A lot of people that stay in it from then on succeed. So, 11 months for you. Some people get their first deal in a couple of weeks, don't they? So obviously back then it was, like you said, it was a lot tougher, but you stuck at it 11 months. I mean, that's pretty cool that you just stuck at it and kept going. What happened when you got the first deal? What happened? Did something else click in your head and you went, right, I've just got to, do the same thing over and over again? How did you scale it from there to actually start making some money?
Yeah, well, in those 11 months, I moved down to Austin, started handwriting letters and stuff right away after watching a bunch of YouTube videos, but I was running out of money. So I had to go get a full-time job. And I was able to land a job at Indeed.com. They're headquartered in Austin. It's the online place where you go look for jobs, Indeed.com.
Yep.
And I got hired to go do sales there. And I was hungry. I was hungry to go in and make some money so I could take it all and just put it back into my real estate company.
Yeah.
So I went from running out of money, not knowing how I'm going to afford next month's rent. And I got hired at Indeed and went from that to Rookie of the Year, Top Gun, President's Club at Indeed, making $250,000 a year. Yep. And I knocked it out of the park when I was at that company. And because I did that because I was so hungry to not work for somebody. It's funny, right? I went and got a job so I didn't have to ever work for somebody again. So when I went and took that job, I just worked like hell 9 to 5, and then 6 p.m. when I got home. So whenever I passed out and couldn't keep my eyes open anymore, I was working on real estate.
Yeah.
And then every weekend, Saturday and Sunday, there was no days off during those first 2-3 years. So when I did get my first deal, to answer your question, I already had money coming in from my 9 to 5. Like my living situation was stable. And so I went and just dumped 100% of the money back into marketing.
Yeah.
So it was like 13, 14 grand, dumped it 100% back into marketing. And remember, it took me 11 months to get that first deal. And then when I made that reinvestment, I got deal like 2, 3, and 4 back to back to back.
Yeah, and no better prep for wholesaling than if you can talk to people and sell. If you know how to close, and that, I believe that's the most important part. If you can get on the phone and you can close people. There's a lot of other stuff, marketing and all the rest of it, but if you can have as many leads as you want. If you haven't got that skill to be able to talk to people, get information and close, you're sort of, pushing the proverbial uphill. So that would have been really good, along with your fitness and all that. That would have sort of projected you towards where you wanted to go, wouldn't it? Because you've done 100%.
I'll tell you, any of you guys that are, working 9 to 5 right now, go get a sales job. That corporate inside sales experience, high pressure, high quota, 60 calls a day, 2.5 hours of talk time, like that molded me into a beast on the phones. Yeah. And I keep that mentality and that discipline, and all the skills that I learned from that job, and went right into my business that I have now, and it's made me very successful.
Yeah. So you've all the way along, you develop people skills, like with all your jobs you've done, and then you've got the sales skills, so you are prime, ready to go. And then obviously once you've got enough money, you said, right, I've had enough of work now, and you got into real estate full time, did you? What was the time frame from when you started sales to when you got out of it?
2.5 years. It would have been sooner. So I'll give this is a funny story that's got a great lesson in it too. So when I was doing my wholesaling business, I'm making $250,000 a year at my day job, and then I'm also running a real estate business at the same time. And so I needed somebody to kind of help me. Well, I had a girlfriend at the time, and I told her, "Hey, look, she was an inside sales girl. She was moving to another company." I said, "Just quit. Come, man the phones, do acquisitions, help run the business while I'm at work." And she was like, "Okay, cool." I'd only been dating this girl for 8 or 9 months. And long story short, I decided, I was like, you know what? It's not working out with this girl. She was a pain in my ass. So I went and broke up with her. And And in the state of Texas, doesn't matter how long that you've been dating, doesn't matter anything. If they claim common law on you, it means that you have to go through a formal divorce proceeding. So I went and broke up with this girl thinking it's just a normal, breakup with another girl. 2 days later, I'm getting served court paperwork saying that I have to show up in court for a divorce proceeding, and also in addition to that, I can't go to my house. I'm barred from my own house that I have the lease on. I can't even go get my clothes.
Yeah.
Can't touch my vehicles. Like I'm basically locked out. Like whatever I had on my persons at the time, that's what I had. Like period.
Wow.
Like I got stripped of all my possessions, and what happened through that was I had like 180 grand saved up at this time, liquid in my account, new cars, new furniture, penthouse apartment, all that. Well, the penthouse, the cars got taken, the 180 grand in the account ended up basically going all the way down to like 11 grand between her and the attorneys. And this was in the course of like 6 or 8 weeks.
Wow.
And I got wrecked. I got wrecked in court. And from there, I just like kept battling. I had deals going on my hustler, right? So I'm working the phones. I'm still working real estate deals while I'm getting my ass handed to me, and I'm still closing. And so I was able to build myself back up, but I had to stay in my corporate job a little bit longer. So I was able to have that safety net of my corporate job while I was getting, my teeth kicked in, and build myself back up. And then once I had another, 3 to 6 months of reserve for my business and my personal was stable, I left. So it could have taken me, I could have been out of that job in, let's say, a year and a half, but it took me a little over 2 years to stay in corporate.
Yeah. Yeah. I was listening to someone the other day, I forget who it was, and they were saying they believe that that's a way to do it. Do it as a side hustle to start with. Because some people are a bit all or nothing, but do it as a side hustle until you earn enough money that you can at least replace, half of your income, so that you're not, like you said, you're not sort of thinking, how am I going to eat this week? How am I going to pay the rent? So I totally agree with you, Nick. I reckon go and get a sales job. Go and get that, because you get that drilled that if you leave the sales job, you still get on the phones and work like 6 hours straight dialing, because it's just a repetition thing. So I reckon that's the best advice you could give a young person that wants to get into wholesaling is go and get a sales job, earn some money, and then start, researching and get into your wholesaling. So
yeah, but treat your real estate business like, it's your life. Like even in my sales job, I was taking my money, I was investing into mentorships, I was going to masterminds, I was giving it all I got. I was treating it like a business. So you don't treat it like a side hustle. Treat it like, this is the direction that you're moving in.
Yeah. So would you say that you were pretty much like you're passionate about it? It was where you wanted to go. Did you have like almost insatiable appetite for it? Like this, I've got to do this, and I'm not stopping until this succeeds. Was that sort of how you describe how you were thinking at the time? Even though you're working in a sales job, were you like, man, I'm going to blow this thing up, in a year or 2 years? Was that the mindset you had?
Yeah, 100%. So like when I was striking out for those 11 months, I remember it took me 104 seller lead appointments before I got my first deal. And this is when you're driving house to house.
Yeah.
So I'm driving all over the state of Texas, no AC in my car. I just had back surgery. I got an open wound on my back this big. I'm dying out there, getting told no left and right. And I remember I'm like on appointment 75. And I'm just like, man, that little bitch voice started coming in my head. Like, maybe you should just quit, just hang this up. And I was like, you didn't come this far to only come this far.
Yeah.
You've invested all this time, energy, money. And if another man can do it and be successful, there's no excuse why you can't too. Yeah. So I'm burning any option of failure at this point. It was either I will be successful at this or it'll kill me. I'll just end up homeless, writing fucking bandit signs, homeless with a burner phone. Like I didn't care at that point. So that's the mentality you've got to have is like, if you're going to do something, you're going to put it all on the line. And
you've got to commit.
I had those goals from the beginning. I always had a strong will to win.
Yeah. No, that sounds like a lot of people I've spoken to. That sounds like, I've got a mate over in Australia, and we've weathered the storm over here. A lot of people have dropped off. You just got to keep pushing hard, and you've got to. What's that name? That 50 Cent movie? Get rich or die trying. Like you said, you're either going to be rich or you're going to be homeless. There's no in between. You've got to give it a shot. But No, that's awesome. And the old phrase that's come to mind is "hell knows no fury, like a woman scorned" with what happened, and that was a setback. But the Nick Perry that sits there today would look back and go, "They were great learning lessons." I mean, I know you didn't enjoy them at the time. I know you didn't enjoy losing the money on it, but that made you who you are today, didn't it? Really, that set you up to be tougher and to be able to take on the next obstacles that were coming along. So that's awesome. And then, I mean, I know. One of your ex-students, Zach Fisher, he actually said, "Oh, you need to get onto Nick and get Nick on the podcast because I've had him on." When did you start coaching? Like, when did you start saying, "Right, I want to," I've obviously made X amount of dollars. I don't know what figure you got to, and you said, "Right, I want to start teaching other people." How long did it take to build your business up, say, to where you were making good money, and then you decided to put back and start coaching people?
I started making seven figures. Like my first seven-figure year was in 2017, and then we've grown every year. Like last year, we did I think 5.1 million.
Yep.
This year, we'll blow that out of the water. Like we're growing rapidly right now. But I didn't start coaching until I actually scaled my way out of my real estate business. So
Right.
a lot of people will go out there and do their first deal and then go be a coach, right? Like,
Yeah.
no, man. Like I put in my 10,000 hours. I put in my dues. I've done every single job in my company. I've hired, fired, put, executives in place. I've been semi-retired for the last 3.5 years.
Yeah. Yep.
So until I retired, like semi-retired, to retire is to expire. I will never retire.
Yeah.
But like until I scaled out of my wholesaling operation to where I was not in the day-to-day, I didn't want to go teach anybody because I didn't feel I was qualified. I was qualified, but I didn't want to do that.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of people asking me for coaching, one-on-one, private mentorship. And I was like, well, the best value for the community is for me to just lay it all out there and put everything into one place where anybody who wants to jump in can actually jump in, and then I don't have to sit there and repeat myself to every single person individually.
Yeah. And did you get, when you got to that stage, did you actually get a lot of enjoyment out of seeing people sort of take off the same way that you'd experienced, like, going that next level, people that might have been struggling a bit and then all of a sudden their businesses took off because they implemented the stuff that you taught them how to implement it? Was that a good feeling inside?
There's no better feeling than that. Like, seeing the success stories that have come out of our mentorship. We've changed lives. We've changed families' lives. Like we changed the entire trajectory of people's, family tree. And to see, people that were struggling or, not even struggling. We have some great people that come in that just 10X everything that they're doing.
Yeah.
And, getting their success stories, it's worth more than money to me to, have that feeling that I've actually made a real impact on other people's lives.
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember when I'm over in the other side of the world, when I first heard about wholesaling, which you can't do here, you can't do most places around the world, just the States. I'm like, are you kidding me? And the fact that you can accelerate your income really quickly, like you said, once you've actually got a deal, you follow it up, and once you actually learn those things, like do your 10,000 hours, the acceleration, it can change lives. Like you said, it can create generational wealth for grandchildren. You know what I mean? So it's an exciting space to be in. And you've climbed the mountain. You started at the bottom, you climbed the mountain. So then to put your arm down and pull some other people up to the top of the mountain would be fantastic as well. And the next thing I wanted to ask you, Nick, was then did you start, as you started making that money, did you start looking at, different investments? Like, did you go into multifamily? Did you go into commercial? Did you start looking to make your money, make you more money? Is that sort of the path you went down?
I did. I mean, we constantly buy rental properties and from our wholesaling business, but I needed places to park capital. So, 2020, I opened up a trucking company, and then I bought mobile home parks. So I own two mobile home parks, and then I came across oil and gas just from being in Texas, hanging around a bunch of rich rednecks. They're all oil and gas guys. So I started learning about oil and gas and the opportunities, and it's The cash flow is great. You're not dealing with tenants or
Yeah.
termites or toilets. You just have a hole in the ground that's pulling up natural resources that's paying you. So I got into that space. And then recently I got into business roll-ups.
Yep.
So like right before this podcast, signing docs on an SBA loan to purchase a garage door company out of
Yep.
Orlando, Florida. It's a third company and a roll-up that I'm doing. So we're rolling up, multiple, home service companies,
Yep.
rebranding them under the same flag, and then selling them to, a larger company for a
Yep.
much higher multiple. So
Yep.
that's the game that I'm playing now. But while I'm doing that, my real estate company continues to thrive and grow like
Yep.
crazy because I put the right people, processes, and
Yeah.
systems in place for it to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. And was that a learning curve trying to work out how to get the right people as you were growing? Is that something that you're good at naturally, or is that something you had to really go off and learn how to manage people and choose the right people? Was that something you struggled with, or was it pretty natural to you?
No, I mean it was just like any other skill. Like when I first started hiring, I was hiring the wrong people, having to fire them, making a lot of mistakes. Like now, when we hire, like we've got a pretty high success rate of the folks that we bring in and onboard because of all of the past failures. So, that's one of the things that we teach to our people now because I'm like, man, I wish I would have known everything I know now.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
because it would have saved me a lot of years. The biggest bottleneck that I see a lot of wholesalers have is outside of their marketing is just hiring the right people.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's really it. So it's a skill for any business. You need to be able to hire and retain, the best talent.
Yeah, definitely. I just want to go back to you were saying about Texas, and I had to laugh. I just thought it was brilliant. I don't know. It was a long time ago, and I was just saying before I come out, I follow I'm Facebook friends with one of your mates. I think he's in Houston.
Mm-hmm.
Is it Brett or Brent Franklin?
Brent.
Yeah, Brent Franklin. And I've been following him for ages. He just gets on and gives it, goes all guns blazing. Now, I remember he posted something, and you were down on the border, and you all had your guns, and you were like, and I remember seeing you in there and a couple, and like we're completely different than America. We got no guns, basically only farmers and police, and a few people have them, and a lot of Australians don't get it. They don't get, and I remember seeing that going, that is gangster, that is cool. I don't know. You had a big pickup truck or something. You're down on the border. I don't know if it was something to do with what was going on down there, but I just went, wow, the Texans, they don't muck around. When there's a call to arms, they're there. So that was pretty cool. I saw that and just went, boys are back in town, So it's a different culture in Texas, isn't it? It's a lot different culture than a lot of other parts around America. And I'm just saying this from, I had to learn the culture for 2 years of how America worked from state to state, all that sort of stuff to be able to talk to people on the phone because I'm the other side of the world. So you obviously weren't originally from Texas, but did you learn a lot in Texas? Did you make some good contacts and learn a lot in Texas?
Texas is the made me into the entrepreneur that I am, right? Texas is the greatest country in the world, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
yeah,
That's the thing about Texas is that the people there it's no bullshit,
yeah,
right?
yep,
It's very hardworking, down to earth. My handshake is strong as oak.
yep,
If
yep,
you break it, I'll break your neck. Like that's the kind of mentality that
yeah,
you get in Texas. It's real men doing real work. It's
yep,
not, Miami or LA where people are wearing man buns and freaking,
yep,
yoga pants. Like these guys are out there in, Carhartts and cowboy boots. That's
yeah,
what it is. What you see on TV, F-150 pickup trucks,
yep,
shotguns, fishing, hunting, hard work, like real men. That being around that, made me maybe a better entrepreneur. Like there's a lot of great entrepreneurs that come out of Texas, and I'm very fortunate I chose to move down there because it helped me out a
yeah,
lot.
yeah. That's sort of what I've picked up. My cousin lives in grapevine between Dallas and Fort Worth. And I just, when I first, I'll pick Fort Worth, and the first deal I ever did was Fort Worth. And so I was talking to a lot of Texans, and every time I say I'm from Australia, and my cousin lives out there, I'm going to come over. They're like, "Yeah, that's a good mix, an Aussie and a Texan," because Aussies traditionally have been like that. We're getting a bit softer. We're getting a bit softer as we go, but Aussies are pretty much like footy guys, and that'll just be straight up in your face and tell you how it is. So there's a bit of similarities there, and I actually have got a lot. I got networked for a couple of years in Texas, and I just I've got friends there that are the person that I actually got the first deal through. I'm still Facebook friends with them. It's a 70-year-old guy, Steve, and a 65-year-old lady, Linda, who I'm really good friends with now. And just the salt of the earth people. They used to be champion clay shooters. Just really good people. So yeah, I've got a bit of a soft spot for Texas. So when I come out there, I'm heading to Texas to catch up with a lot of people. But what I like about it is that entrepreneurial spirit, like you said, because we're doing real estate, but hang on, let's do some oil and let's do some of this and I think, from what I know, it seems to be a place where it's just like, let's give it a crack. Let's have a crack and do as much as we can and try and make as much money and be successful. So like the old
It's a
Australia.
money. Let me just put it to you this way: it's a money making state.
Yeah.
There's a reason all my businesses are there, and there's a reason that I go back to Texas all the time. In 3 weeks, I'll be spending a month in Texas.
Yeah. Yep.
I go there and I make money. Like that's the thing. If you can't make it in Texas, you can't make it anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's good. Just interesting to talk about it. I know a lot of Australian people that have got businesses set up in Texas now because they reckon it's the last frontier. So
I love it.
especially people from Melbourne, because we were the most locked down city during COVID. So, things are very stifled. So they've set up over in Texas, and I laugh because I know all this, but most people don't really know much about America, Australian. So I try and sort of fill them in. But yep, love it. All right, so you've moved to Panama City. What you've obviously told us about your new businesses you're getting into now. Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years, Nick? Are you just going to keep growing and growing and just keep shooting forward?
Yeah, I mean exponentially. With the mergers and acquisition business that I'm in right now, like I'm already working one deal that'll make me multiple 8 figures in the next 12 months, in addition to my other ventures. So as I get more into mergers and acquisitions, what I realized is that all the people that are billionaires or making hundreds of millions are private equity and buying and selling businesses.
Yeah.
I got the pleasure. I lived in Miami before I moved down here, and I got to live in a really nice neighborhood in Miami Beach. I'm talking with $20 million houses are my neighbors, and it's the best of the best.
Yeah.
Right. 200-foot yachts, all that stuff. And I would always ask my neighbors, like, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" Kind of like when I was in personal training.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And they keep saying the same thing: private equity, private. I was like, "What is this private equity thing?" And basically, what it is you're pulling together money to buy businesses, roll them up into a portfolio, and sell them to a larger institutional buyer.
Yep.
And that's where you're making 8, 9, 10-figure paychecks.
Yeah.
So
you just basically, as you climb the ladder, you just use the skills that you've learned in real estate. Single family, then you go to multi-family, and you just grow. And that's what you're saying now is this is what you're learning now. This is what you're going to do. And then you'll evolve to something else. So it's just a constant growth, isn't it? There's, like you said, if you retire, you expire because you've got to keep doing something. You've got to keep doing something, and you might as well be the best that you can be. So I reckon it's awesome. I love Americans, capitalists. Like, it's just awesome. They're not scared of making money. We've got a little bit of a tall poppy syndrome over in Australia, and the contact I've had with people in the States is like, let's just keep going. Let's encourage each other, and let's all make money. So I love it. I think it's fantastic. So Nick, you're walking, either now, a couple of years from now, you're going to the next level, and some young personal trainer is coming in to help you out. You've had a few injuries, and he's trying to work on this new technique, and he says to you, Nick, I want to get into what you're getting into. Where do I start? What would your advice be to someone that was in the same position where you were, having people that had wealth around you and you wanted to learn? What would you tell the young person to get started and to succeed.
Yeah, I think real estate wholesaling is a great vehicle to get you from where you are, if you got zero money, whatever, to getting, 10, 20, 100,000, 250,000, $500,000 within a relatively short period of time. Um, and it's funny you say that. I go to a gym here, and I actually have like a guy that I'm mentoring. He is a personal trainer at the
Yep.
gym that I go to. He's 22 years old, and it's
Yep.
funny you mentioned that. And so, like, what I've told him is like, look, you've got a couple options. Either first thing is you need to get educated, right? And here's a few different people that I recommend you go get your education from. They've got a ton of free, great content on YouTube, but I highly recommend buying their course
Yep.
and going through
Yep.
all of their stuff, right? So you can be well prepared and well equipped to go from zero to where you're at.
Yeah.
That's the reason that I failed in those first 11 months, was that I didn't have guidance and mentorship. I was trying to do everything for free on YouTube, and I was listening to 50 different people give me all these different, perspectives on what I should be doing, and it confused me,
Yep.
and it ended up dragging out the process. So, mentorship, find a good mentor, buy their course. I don't care if you got to put it on a credit card or whatever. Like, if you're serious about doing this, you're going to have to, nut up and invest in yourself. So find a good mentor, invest into the education so you can go out and get results much faster than I did.
Yeah.
In terms of like what is working right now in 2023 for marketing for us, it's pay-per-click advertising. So
Yeah.
Google, Bing, all the search engines, those are where we generate all of our seller leads from.
Yep.
So that would be what I would recommend is, learn how to do it on your own. There's a lot of agencies out there that will promise to do it for you, and it never works out great.
Yeah.
That's one of the big pillars of my mentorship. I've used this agency, I've used that agency, and they always end up screwing it up somehow eventually. So learn how to do digital advertising and generate seller leads. Don't sit there and get distracted by anything. Your only job is make the phone ring.
Yep.
Talk to sellers.
Yep.
If you're not talking to sellers, there's nothing else to be talking about. I don't care about your LLC. I don't care about your logo. I don't care about any of that
Yep.
other garbage. Who did you talk to on the phone today?
Yeah.
That's really what matters.
Yeah, and that's what you'll learn if you go and work in a sales thing. You've got KPIs you've got to meet every day, so you just get drilled with that. So yeah, that's true. Yeah, I mean, if you don't mind me asking, Nick, how old are you now? Like, how old are you?
34. So
30. So you're still fairly young. So
it's been a decade. I started doing wholesaling when I was 24.
Yeah,
So
yeah. So you're well on the way, you know, to the upper level, because 34. I mean, some guys don't even wake up out of their slumber till 34, do they? They sort of wake up one day and go, "I better do something." So that's great. So this young guy, he's picking your brain, and you're just basically pointing him in the right direction. So that's pretty cool. All right, mate. Is there any other stuff from any of the other businesses you want to share, or do you want to just stick on real estate? Because we'll wrap it up soon. I don't want to take too much of your time, but it's been interesting, mate. I've never met you before. I've heard a bit about you through people I know, and I appreciate you coming on the show. And just everything you said is what all the top level people that come on the show say. Just, you know, you've done your work in the trenches. You've paid for knowledge to speed up your journey, and you've taken a risk, and you've worked, and you know, you've laid it all on the line. So congratulations on where you're at in business. You know, congratulations, like 34, and you've got a bright future in front of you. And yeah, I just appreciate you coming on and sharing all this knowledge with people, you know, on the podcast. We drop it in a heap of Facebook groups, so I encourage people to watch it. You know, like in a decade period, Nick's rose up from basically from nothing to where he is today, sitting in a nice spot in Panama City. So it's achievable, guys. And you heard what he said: jump into wholesaling, you know, educate yourself, and just make a start. So thanks, Nick. I did want to just ask you quickly, just the last thing. about the oil. How did you go with the oil? Did you have much success with that? And are you still involved in oil in Texas?
100%. So I own uh, portions of different oil and gas wells, right? So I've got basically, it's like owning a piece of an apartment complex.
Yep. Yep.
And I get paid every single month from the oil and gas that it produces out of the ground. I'm a passive investor, so it
Yep.
takes none of my time. I sit
Yep.
back, I collect a check. It's called buying production. So
Yep.
you guys can go online and type in like buying oil and gas production, do your research, and there's companies out there that will sell you production of their oil and gas, because they want that upfront capital so they can continue to expand. So that's what I did. I partner with a small operator that manages everything. They do all the property management, quote unquote, and I get my portion of the rent check every single month. And it comes on time. The pipeline pays every single day. They're never late. So that's the great thing about oil and gas. The cash flow is much higher than, say, if you were to buy real estate. You don't get the same appreciation, but you get amazing tax benefits.
Beautiful.
And then I'm also in on the equipment side. So I own a Cabot 550 drilling rig. So it's a piece of equipment that actually drills the wells into the earth. It goes down 9,000 feet. It's a big
What
machine.
about shares and Bitcoin? Have you dabbled in that? Are you sort of spreading things around now that you've got more money, or are you just focusing on the businesses and doing that? Like, what would your advice be?
I mean, I've got crypto, but here's my deal. Like, I lost my ass on a trade a little over a year ago. I was trying to swap tokens, and I ended up going onto a phishing website, and I lost $65,000. Somebody ended up hacking my hardware wallet, and I lost 65 grand. And then, out of all the hours, I was really into it, like probably a year and a half ago, but out of all the hours I spent doing it, I never got super far. So I've got a couple $100,000 of crypto just sitting. I feel good about my bags being packed and ready for anything to happen, but I'm not sitting there, on crypto forums every single day, learning about what's going on, because what I like is real hard, tangible assets. Things I can see, touch, feel, call me old school, whatever, but real estate, oil wells, equipment, things that are actual collateral, right?
Old school stuff. Hey, before we go, Nick, do you want to do a shout out? Firstly, of your real estate business. Secondly, of your socials. If people want to follow you, jump on and follow you. And even just if you're still doing the coaching, I'm not sure if you're still doing the coaching with the real estate. If you want to just do a shout out of your contact points, if anyone wants to start following you and checking out what you're doing, just before we jump off, if you just want to do a shout out and let people know how they can either follow you or get in contact with you.
Yeah, so Instagram's great. You just go my name, Nick Perry, REI. You'll see my profile picture, and then I'm active on there. So if you need anything, you can reach out to me on Instagram or Facebook. Facebook's good too. We still have our coaching open right now. We'll probably close it off because we're getting close to the amount of members that we can support. And fulfill. So it is open right now. If you guys are interested, the link's in my bio, or you can go to 7figurecartel.com. So those are the ways to reach me. Just let me know, how I can serve you guys.
Awesome. Brilliant. Well, thanks for coming on, Nick. Like I said before, upwards and onwards. Sounds like you're reaching for the sky, so that's awesome. And if I get out, I don't know, you might not even be in Texas. You might be just staying down at Panama City, but hopefully our paths cross one day, and I can catch up with all your crew up in Texas and buy you a beer. So good stuff, mate. Appreciate you coming on and sharing with us like that. And take it easy. And if you ever come out to Australia, just flick me a message and I'll show you around.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate you having me on.
All right, no worries. All right, guys, we're checking out. Because of Nick Perry, you've been